Okay, so this DOGE thing is very interesting in a lot of different ways. For those that are not aware, I used to work at Tesla from 2017 to 2021. Now, the reason why I want to talk about my time at Tesla a little bit and DOGE is that I see a lot of the things happening in DOGE now with the federal government that remind me of my time at the company. And they're very connected. When I worked at Tesla, the culture was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The speed at which things changed was a really eye-opening thing for me. I'm, used to what I think most, like a huge majority of the working public's used to, which is things move very slowly. Changes are very difficult to put through. Things that should be done don't get done. There are managers upon managers upon managers that get in the way of doing stuff that is common sense, but for some reason, things get in the way because either people don't want to put in the effort, it's too hard, corrupt reasons, right? There's a bunch of different reasons why stuff doesn't get done in the private sector, usually. But I saw the opposite in Tesla. And it really highlighted what the optimal solution looks like for operating a body, be it a private company or a public company. And with DOGE, with the things that they're doing now, with the way they are moving through the different bodies in the government and highlighting a lot of the corruption that's been happening, they're doing so under a reclassification of an existing body, an existing framework that the Obama administration had put through around modernizing the systems in the government to create a very easy way to figure out how the money's flowing. And that is both difficult because you have a web of complexity in the federal government that has been building upon itself for decades, one of the least efficient bodies in the entire world, combined with one of the least transparent bodies in the world. It shouldn't be obvious that the systems of the federal government have been completely broken for a really long time. Anyone who has interfaced with the federal government knows this. Just go to the DMV. It's a very simple thing. Wonderful people work at the DMV, but it's very obvious that the entire system is broken. It really is truly broken. And so what they're doing is that they're moving extremely fast in fixing a lot of these giant weaknesses. They're creating a lot of visibility. Just a simple function of creating visibility around what the government is spending money on is highlighting some of the craziest things. Like legitimately, this whole thing with US aid, which I know you've probably seen the space that I edited from X with Elon and Vivek and everything on the channel, which was such a fascinating discussion. A lot of the conspiracy theories around, there's a deep state or whatever, put me in the camp that I thought, all that stuff was a conspiracy theory. It's like, here go the loonies. Here goes the Alex Jones listener again. It's true. It's true. And why did that happen? Because there's a lack of transparency. What DOGE is doing is that they are bringing the culture and the speed of Musk industry to the federal government, which to me was a unbelievable thought. Not even a year ago, not even 2 years ago. And now this is actually happening. It's actually happening. And so fast forward a little bit, what does this mean? This means that there's now a path for the US to have by far the most transparent, most functional, most efficient, most most effective, most innovative, most disruptive government in the world, which will allow the country to be in a position to be far ahead of everybody else when it comes to taking care of its citizens, responding to the will of the people, capitalizing on technological opportunities and improvements, creating wealth for its citizens, defending itself against countries that don't have our best interests in mind. The United States is set up to be extremely responsive. Ideally, it's set up to be extremely responsive to the will of the people. The ultimate way of ensuring that this works correctly is if those representatives actually reflect the will of the people. And the exact opposite has been happening for far too long. I'm very confident in saying that a huge majority of this country feels this way. We have different ways of approaching it. We have different ways of thinking about, hey, it should be done this way, it should be done that way. But without a doubt, I think all of us can agree the federal government has been utterly unresponsive to the will of the people, bar none. My prediction, honestly, is that I think DOGE is going to set, by the time it's done, so that group is set to disband on America's 250th birthday. I think July of next year. So they have about a year and a half to get stuff done, which I think is the right thing to do, to be completely honest. I'm of the camp that there should be less government bodies, right? There should be less of these things that could get in the way of the will of the people. This is a necessary step, in my opinion, that needs to get done. Is that this is going to be a completely unrecognizable country in a couple of years' time. I think that people are going to be shocked at how well it functions. A lot of the hysterics that I'm seeing online and from the Democrat Party specifically, what they remind me of is the same hysterics that we saw with the acquisition of X, the same hysterics that I saw internally at Tesla when a giant change was being put through, and people that they didn't really fully grasp what the culture was about, which is just you prioritize the optimal outcome for what you're trying to get done. And people that fear change and don't want change to happen or are scared of what the change does. They are uncomfortable with the change that it does to them personally, right? And that's a lot of it, is people feel personally, viscerally connected to something that changes, right? A lot of what's happening today reminds me of that. It's almost like, to use an analogy for the audience of this channel primarily that watches my content, the bureaucracy, the existing government system reminds me a lot of like legacy auto. It reminds me a lot of legacy media. These are people, politicians, bureaucrats that are not used to speed. They're not used to disruption. And DOGE is disrupting the shit out of them just by being transparent, just by being like, this is what happened. This is what happened. Here's where the money's going. Here's where the money's going from those entities to different places, which is going to a different place, which is going to a different place, which is going to a different place, right? Just by the simple function of transparency, it's throwing people completely insane, which on its own speaks volumes, right? So I just wanted to make this video just to get people caught up on my thoughts on this, because it really is a repeating theme in this sort of, this channel follows the Musk industry very closely, trying to understand it, what the hell is going on, trying to really figure out what the end state's going to look like, who are the players involved, right? Trying to approach it as objectively as we can. All of us have biases, obviously, as human beings, but we're trying to be very objective about where it could end up, right? So if you want to get an understanding of what the end game may look like with this, I encourage you to look into, and there's so much content around this on the internet. Just look at the story arc of SpaceX, look at the story arc of Tesla, look at the story arc of X. Just these repeating themes. Elon, you can hear my baby. He's woken up from his nap. This repeating theme of Elon enters extremely disruptible space. He disrupts it, makes it orders of magnitude better. Just literally just look at the SpaceX and the space industry. We went from throwing, just throwing away rockets once. We put it in space and then we throw it away, versus reusable rockets. Tesla with the electric car and self-driving, so on and so forth. Just look at the arc and you'll see a ton of similarities with what's happening with DOGE.